For me, Aryan invasion theory is, I think, mother of all historical scams. It's nothing but scam. I'm telling you, there's no evidence of it. In India, there's nothing called, this is primary religion, this is second religion. Everyone is free to do whatever they wanted to do. Ashoka, for the first ruler to do that, he could be very intolerant. In fact, there is a story, in fact, I mentioned in my book also, that he killed 18,000 Ajivikas. 18,000. For that one mistake, Ashoka ordered the killing of entire Jain community. And this killing continued till by accident his own brother got killed.
The entire Jain community.
Yes, if you read our history, it is nothing but a series of invasions from outside and a series of defeats for us. Nothing else. The reality is that we might have lost 10 battles, but we won more than 100 battles. The thing is that Islam in 100 years, after the death of Prophet Muhammad, spread across the world. It reached the center of France. It won the entire Central Asia, West Asia. It won almost North Africa. But it could not win a single thing in India. It took them 500 years to get the first victory of Tarain. And he actually used the term minimal, which I often use. Minimal was not used by me, it was used by Clement Attlee to say that the role of Mahatma Gandhi was minimal in the country's independence. And many people, contemporary people who were seeing the independence struggle in the late 40s, agreed with that.
Vanakkam Pesu viewers. We have a very, very special guest joining us today in our exclusive podcast today, Mr. Utpal Kumar ji. He's an author and a historian. He has recently written a book called Eminent Distorians. We are aware that how our history has been distorted by many leftist historians over the years, and to talk in detail about the distortion in Bharatiya history, we have a subject matter expert today. So, Utpalji, thank you so much for joining me in this show. We warmly welcome you.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely my privilege to be here.
Yeah. So, for our audience, they are seeing you for the first time. So, I think they'll enjoy this show. To start with, we know the amount of distortions that has happened in Bharatiya history so much that Bharatiya started hating their own ancestors, their own history. They started abusing their own ancestors. This is the extent to which the distortions has happened in Bharat. So to start with, where do these distortions begin with the starting point?
Uh, See, the beginning of the distortion began when the British were here. And it was very logical because they came here to rule and rule through their, for plundering this country. So they wanted to create a notion that this country has always been backward. Is always there has been nothing good in this country. There's nothing admirable that has ever happened here. So they created history with that mindset, that objective, where they can justify their rule over this country. That the very rule, the very justification that they have come here for civilizing the natives of this subcontinent. But uh, real problem for us started after independence, where though I must say that when the country got independent, there were quite a few nationalist historians like R.C. Mazumdar or Jagannath Sarkar. They wanted to write history from this country's perspective, but unfortunately, the political this milieu was such that that they were marginalized. First under Nehruji's time, Jawaharlal Nehru's time, and later when Indira Gandhi came to power, they were completely pushed out of our academic, our intellectual consciousness. It was deliberately done, and it was done overnight when Indira Gandhi came. Basically, it was like a bargain for Indira Gandhi. Indira Gandhi government was a minority government, so they got the support from the Communist Party, and in support of that, Indira Gandhi was asked that she should hand over the cultural, educational departments to communists and that's why you see that entire history, historical institution, theaters, films, and everything. They were dominated overwhelmingly by the people of one particular ideology, that was leftism. So, and that's where and the stranglehold of that ideology was so much that there was no space for altered voices there. They were completely, silenced. They were completely gagged, and this happened. This continued for next 50 years, unfortunately, and that's why you see that distortion. Uh, you may ask the question, why why did communists or leftists, they hate our Sanatan tradition? So the answer will be, because for communist, whether he's a historian or he's an activist, his primary job is to capture the power. And when a historian first behaves like an activist, he will come up with theories justifying, how how communism can take over the country, and that's where, communists finds that our Sanatan tradition, uh, our civilizational traditions, as prime enemy. They believe that if they can't uproot the civilizational ethos of the country, they can't convert or make this country communist. And that's why the history was written with that perspective in mind, where everything was projected in dark, where class war kind of thing happened, where people from outside came, and they kind of pushed out and marginalized the original inhabitants of the country, and that's why the divide happened about from Aryan Dravidian divide, artificial construct was created, tribal non-tribal divide was created. So this country was completely divided. So what started in the British, but British kind of weaponized the caste and the class system. Uh, our communist historians took it, I think, 10 steps further.
Okay. Actually, just because you brought this point of Aryan invasion theory, I would like to elaborate on it. Like, can you please shed more light on this Aryan invasion theory? Because we, Tamilians, are the most affected ones on the whole in the whole nation with this Aryan invasion theory. Because our politicians heavily invested on this theory. They developed this theory. They convinced people that Aryans came from outside and marginalized people here. So, if you, as a historian, if you can shed more light on this, we can brush away this Aryan invasion theory with more evidence.
See, for me, Aryan invasion theory is, I think, mother of all historical scams. It's nothing but scam. I'm telling you, they know evidence of it. It is based on just theories, and theories created on very flimsy, dubious circumstances or evidences. And I'm surprised. I'll give you examples, and you'll believe that how nonsensical this Aryan invasion theory has been, and still for 100 years, we have been teaching this theory. We have accepted this theory. There are political parties using it for their advantage. So I believe that this story is more political than it has anything to do with history or our civilizational past. Coming to this Aryan vision theory. So theory is very simplistic in its approach. So the theory says that there are people called Aryans who came from Central Asia, and they were nomads, they were illiterates, they were warlike people, they will roam around on horses, good for nothing basically. But they had the best of the language. Sanskrit is the most sophisticated language even today. We are told that it's most sophisticated language ever human mind has created. Now that Sanskrit is carried by these nomads, illiterates, warlike people, good for nothing people, and so this was their language. So they came into India and they found Harappan civilization. So Mortimer Wheeler has written that so while digging out Harappa, they found 37 human skeletons. So they immediately imagined a situation where Harappans came and they attacked Aryans came and they attacked the Harappans, and that's why those 37 skeletons were there. But further digging showed out that that there were no cut marks there, and there were very far and few such skeletons, and they died of natural deaths. So they swiftly over decades, they swiftly shifted from invasion to migration. So even someone like Robila Thapa is the mother of today's our Marxist historiography. She's the icon. She's the icon there. If you have to say number one, number two, she'll come as the number one historian, distorian in my
Yeah.
list.
The
So
problem is
even she,
these
yeah.
historians, they will quote the book of Romila Thapar to see, Romila Thapar has said this is the history, so we have to believe in this.
No, no, this is very smart. See, they all do it with each other. What they do then, Romila Thapar will quote Vipin Chandra will quote Harbans Mukhia will quote again Romila Thapar. So they will quote each other to justify each other's theories.
Yeah.
So basically, and I have a story about, where, I mentioned about one American researcher. She comes to India in early 2000. And she read an article in Hindustan Times where, Harbans Mukhia, another eminent historian, he wrote an
Hmm.
article saying that, Hindus had destroyed several temples. So
Hmm.
this American lady goes to that eminent historian and asking, okay, I'm researching on the subject. Can you provide me the evidence of what you have written? So what Harbans Mukhia does, Harbans Mukhia tells her that no, I don't have any evidence, but Romila Thapar has evidence. Please go to her. So this lady very diligently goes to Romila Thapar. And she asked Romila Thapar, do you have the evidence? Please share, because I'm doing some work on that. Romila Thapar, interestingly, says, no, I don't have the evidence, but one American academician, Richard Eaton, has all the evidences. Now, this is how they do. Interestingly, Romila Thapar is the one in 1969 she wrote. Again, they wrote with Harbans Mukhia and Bipin Chandra a booklet, 69-page booklet, where she had claimed in 1969 that Hindus have destroyed, Hindu rulers have destroyed Hindu temples. Now, she doesn't have the evidence for 30, 40 years, but she had already written in 1969, but she didn't have the evidence. Mr. Eaton has in America. So that's how they do. They create the ecosystem where they will quote each other. And what also helped them in before social media came to existence was no one was there to question them. Everything was there. The newspaper was their supporters, the elite newspapers were there. Doordarshan was run by government. So it was a very cozy circle where they decided what is truth. And they told everyone that this is the only truth. So what I know, Arun Saul in his seminal book, Eminent Historian, he writes that, a typical Marxist historian starts his line with, maybe Aryans came to India. And the next line is, so therefore Aryan comes to India. So their journey from maybe to therefore is very swift. But then that's how their historiography is all about. Now coming to Aryan invasion theory. So by 1990s, I mean, someone like Romila Thapar shifts from Aryan invasion to Aryan migration because there's no evidence of
Hmm.
invasion. So once they say, no, I don't, there was no invasion because there no archaeological evidence of it, but there were migration. But there was no evidence of migration also. So what did Roman Thapar do? Roman Thapar then says, yes, there was migration, but they came in a very small groups of people. So the number was so small that there might not be any evidence. There were no archaeological evidence. Now, this theory is even weaker than the invasion one. Invasion still can be justified. Invasion kiya, they came and they killed Harappans and they imposed their culture. Few people in dozens coming, they can't superimpose a civilization of Harappan scale. It was one of the largest civilization of the era, with lakhs of people living together, and they all were very rich, very prosperous, very urban, educated people. So now imagine, look at this theory. So Romila Thapar and her gang would like us to believe that Aryans were warlike, illiterate people who had Sanskrit as their language. They came to Harappa, and they somehow convinced Harappans to give up their own language, and Harappans took the Sanskrit from these warlike people. And they just not took Sanskrit, they took everything from them. So does it happen? Now look, language is such a sticky subject. You are from Tamil Nadu. I often go to Bangalore for purpose. I believe that for North India, sometimes even auto wala dealing with it becomes very difficult because language is a very sensitive subject. Now here the theories, see, they want to make us believe that Harappans voluntarily left their language. Language is a very sticky subject, very sensitive subject. People, even when they convert, they don't change their language. And look at the case of Bangladesh, Iran, Pakistan. They all may have been now they all are Islamic countries, but they still talk. One talks Bengali, most Pakistani talks Punjabi, Iran talks Iranian. So they don't change their language. Language remains. But this is the only case where Harappans overnight change their language. Now, there are other examples also. There is no literary evidence, not one, which says that Aryans came from outside. Now, this is also against a very norm, global norm, I'm saying. Any society, any community which ever migrates, I'm telling with a lot of responsibility, they remember, their memory may it gets stuck that they came from somewhere else. Even if they forget the place from where they came, they remember. Like Iranians also, for instance, in Jind Avesta, their holy book, they remember that Iran was not their homeland. They came from India. It's written in Jind Avesta. When Iranians were persecuted and Zoroastrians, when they came to India for refuge, they first came to Gujarat. So they have documented everything, that where they first landed, which king helped them, how they survived. So you don't forget. If you migrate from some other place, even like American red this Inca civilization, before Europeans came to America, North and South America, Incas and Aztec civilization, they also have the memory that they have once upon a time they migrated from some other place. Now Bharat is the only case where we keep on saying that no, we didn't come from outside. This is our homeland, this is our motherland, this is our holy land. But our historian will tell us, no. You guys must have eaten some opium, and forgotten everything. You came from outside. No evidence of this. Now, another thing they come up with, language thing. They say that you must have heard about that. That inscriptions were found in Anatolia region of Turkey, where there were kings or Hittite kings. They had some agreements where they invoked gods like Indra, Varun, in the Turkey region. So our eminent historian would tell us that at that time Aryans were in the process of coming to India, and that's why they had done they used all these gods. So this basically the language used there was a pre-Vedic language. Now this is something very I'm saying very something very scientific. So the language of that inscription, which today we found in Turkey region, must be of pre-Vedic period, pre-Vedic period. Rig Veda were written in India, where Saraswati mentioned. Saraswati was there in Punjab and all these regions. So the language must be of pre-Rig Vedic period. Now, when our scholars compared the language of this Mitanni language, they found that it was closer to the later Vedic period language. The words were used were common in the later Vedic period, not in even the Vedic period, later Vedic period. So my point is that all these suggest that people from India went outside, and not the other way around. And there are other evidences of that. Like there is
Okay,
a war called.
Indians went outside, not the other way around.
Yes, they're out of India migration, and there are stories of that. There was one war happened, which Rig Veda mentions, this Dasragi war, Yuddha. That's called War of Ten Kings. This is one of the, like in our literature, our Sanskrit Shastras. There are three major wars took place. One was the Devasur war between gods and the Asuras. Second was the Sragya war between 10 kings at one side and a Bharat king called Sudash at the other side. And third is Mahabharata war. So in that second war, the Sragya war, Sudash single-handedly defeated the combination of 10 kings. And when those 10 kings were defeated, 3-4 of them left the geography of this country and got settled in Central Asia and West Asia. So we have theory of that, people leaving this country and going out and not coming in. So my point is they know evidence. It's all created out of of thin air with politics in mind. And now with Saraswati being found, I mean, we today when we are excavating, we are finding most Harappan sites along the course of dried Saraswati course. So basically, the Harappan sites along with Saraswati River means that they were one and the same civilization. And they got the theory around 1900 BC, Saraswati is dried up. So all these things, when you put your mind without in bias, you realize that Harappans and the Vedic people were one and the same, and
Okay.
they were just two sides of the same coin. The
So
moment you
that
put
is
it, yeah,
so that is your first chapter, right? In your
yes,
book, the Harappans and the Vedic civilization both are the same.
yes, yes,
So in your second chapter, you mentioned about epics and empires from Ramayana and Mahabharata to Buddha and Ashoka. So each and every household is familiar about Ramayana and Mahabharata. So apart from that, Buddha and Ashoka. So I have heard from many historians saying that in Bharat, uh, no king had an official religion of their state, of their kingdom, except Ashoka. Ashoka had an official state religion as Buddhism. So how did it impact Bharat according to you?
First, I should just add something about Ramayana and Mahabharata and the role
Sure,
of our
sure,
historians. And you'll be
sure, sure.
surprised to know that even on issue as Ramayana and Mahabharata, they try to distort so badly. Like Romila Thapar in her book, History of India, Penguin History of India, she writes and quite categorically that Mahabharata happened first and Ramayana happened later. So how they subvert history. Basically, they want to make a mockery out of your entire sense of history or sense of civilizational understanding. They do it deliberately, and they will question and put so many theories in air that you'll get confused and say, "Oh, I don't know what is true and what is not true." So they do it with that sense of that mindset. Now, coming to your question on Ashoka. Uh, Ashoka I see him a very smart ruler.
Okay.
Ashoka for me is like today, most politicians use PR to really push their aura up. Ashoka was very was a third century BC person who almost did what most of politicians do today. So that's where you see his rock edicts. He pompously and very smartly used his rock edicts to promote his own image as a kind of a righteous person, a person who had shunned violence, who was very giving, and who really took care of his own citizens, who never took arms and weapons, never tried to kill anybody. So he
Yeah.
created that myth of him being a very pacifist, good person, where the one perfect myth is about his the way he conquered Kalinga, and he out of remorse he become a pacifist, Buddhist, and everything. The reality is that he was already a Buddhist years before he launched his attack on Kalinga. So typical myth making, creation of myth making. You see Ashoka, for instance. Ashoka in our tradition was never regarded as the ideal ruler, and that's why
Okay.
no wonder he was forgotten. Had Ashoka not done the exercise through this rock addicts or pillar addicts, where he wrote all the good thing about himself, people would not have ever known him today, his greatness. And like in 1815, Princeps accidentally discovered his rock addict. And at that time also he could not know that who is this guy. And because the term mentioned was Devnam Priya Priyadasi. So they realized who is this Priyadasi. So it took them almost two decades more. In 1837, they realized that this is Ashoka. So this guy was already forgotten for all his greatness, so-called greatness, precisely because this country, people, and our tradition didn't find his kind of policies very dharmic. And dharmic, I'm saying in a very righteous manner. And there are stories about him. You talked about him promoting and pushing Buddhism. See, there are historians say that okay, no, he did not make Buddhism state religion. But even if he did not make it a state religion, he acted like one. He he behaved in such a manner that Buddhism was a number one religion in his state. This again is very un-Indic in nature. In India, there's nothing called this is primary religion, this is second religion. Everyone is free to do whatever they wanted to do. Ashoka was the first ruler to do that. He could be very intolerant. In fact, there is a story. In fact, I mentioned in a book also that he killed 18,000 Ajivikas. 18,000. And it happened after later, when all the things were being talked about Ashoka's greatness and everything. He killed 18,000 Ajivikas just because he didn't like them. In fact, another story being told about him is like there was a Jain monk, and he painted a picture where in painting where shown that Buddha is going to a Jain Tirthankar. It's just fine, and that's what we all do. We believe that like if I'm a Buddhist, I'll make Buddha the larger than life. For that one mistake, Ashoka ordered the killing of entire Jain community. And this killing continued till by accident his own brother got killed.
The entire Jain community.
Yes, and whoever were found, and it stopped only when his own brother, his name was Tisha. Tisha got accidentally killed in that mayhem, and then that this madness was stopped. So this was his
Okay.
greatness. This was his greatness. The other reason of his greatness was, that Nehru, Jawaharlal Nehru,
Hmm.
loved Ashoka. He tried to model his own governance on the Ashoka's principles, and that's why I see when Nehru faltered big time, but then he loved it, and that's why you see Ashok Chakra became our main symbol and everything. In fact, in his letter to his daughter Indira Gandhi, he writes profusely in praise of Ashoka that how great he is, and he wants to model his governance on Ashoka's model and everything. So the first distortion post independence, if I have to say, done by the Nehruvian historian, was the
Hmm.
creation of the larger than life of Ashoka.
Okay, so you started about the distortions in Ramayana and Mahabharata. You mentioned about like Ramnath Thapar mentioning Ramayana happened after Mahabharata. Right? Mahabharata happened first. Apart from that, which is the biggest distortion happened in our itihasas, especially.
See, our entire history is about distortion. I'm sorry to say, and we have not claimed it. I'll give you another example. As we move further in my next chapters,
I'm asking you particularly about Ramayana and Mahabharata.
yeah,
Particularly
I'm
about.
sorry.
I'm asking you
Acha,
particularly about Ramayana and Mahabharata.
acha, acha,
Distortions in Ramayana.
in Ramayana, okay. Basically, especially Ramayana, they also projected this kind of a Aryanization of Bharat. So they will say that that Ram was a kind of carrier of the Aryan values and tradition, and he went to Dravidian land and tried to imperialism and all this. This modern concept they would try to push it. While the story is very simple, that his wife was forcibly taken by Ravan, and that's why he went there. There no other business was there. But they projected this story in this modern, there is communist conflict ridden theory. Their loopholes are so big. Like if you read the history of Ravan, for instance, who is Ravan? Ravan is a Brahmin. So, when they want to create a kind of non-Brahmin kind of or a Dravidian Aryan kind of divide, there is no such divide. They were same people fighting each other, and the issue was issue was not racial or that kind of thing. But this is what our historian, including Rohit, tried to do. They will project as Ram going south was kind of projected as a kind of increasing spread of the Aryanization of this country. The fact is that Sri Lanka, if you're talking about Ravan being there, Ravan was already a Brahmin. He was a Brahmin, and our literature says that. And some say that he might have gone from the from as west as Gujarat. So whatever it is, but the point that our literature never said that they were two different people. Again, these people first through Aryan invasion theory, now through Ramayana, they will try to create that distortion that they were two different people and they were inherently fighting against each other. That's the distortion. Basically,
Yeah.
they want to delegitimize this in the entire hold this true literature has on the psyche and the mindset of the people.
Okay. Actually, you said our entire history is full of distortions, and you started with some example. You can please further continue that.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, what has happened, and it has not been corrected even now. Like, we have seen like 11, almost like 11 years of a government which is non-Nehruvian in a true sense of the term,
Yeah,
and yet,
non-left.
yeah, yeah. But still, narrative still is being dominant. We still carry mostly the narrative set by the leftists, and and that's why you see most of our history textbook still carry the same mistakes which we have been taught. We have been taught for last 7 decades or more. So like one theory is there, that most of people now accept that Gupta period was a golden period. Though even like there are historians like D.N. Jha, the follower of Ramnath Thapar. questions that also and says that the real like a typical communist activist, he says the real golden age for us lies in the future and not in the past. So basically, there is a theory in the communism which says that in the future there will be casteless society, and then the golden age is there. So his book says that his entire chapter is on that, where he questions the golden age of Gupta period. But in my book, I'm saying that our golden period did not end with Guptas. Here, even our nationalist historians make a lot of mistake. They also were kind of conditioned. This is what is called coloniality, mental coloniality. You sometimes become victim of the people who are fighting. Our golden period continued. Look at the exploits, cultural and civilization exploits of Pallavas, Cholas. It's just Chola Empire for I'm saying that in no way second to the Guptas. No ways. I mean, what they achieved, and they were not regional. And my point is, we need to now come out of this Delhi-centric history, where anything from Delhi is the mainstream and the national, and anything from the other class becomes regional. Cholas are as central for Bharat history as Mughals or Mauryas were or Guptas were. We need to change that. We need to, because look at the exploits, look at the kind of work they did, look at the temples they created, look at the wealth generated, look at how they won Southeast Asia. It is unprecedented in the history of humankind that such a long journey they did, and so I've written in the book that victory in Southeast Asia was so perfectly planned. How could they? It's unimaginable. 1,000-year-old. This is not today's story. We should have been cherishing those moments. There is a dynasty called Karkotas in Kashmir. Amazing story. In fact, one of the king, Lalitaditya, is a Karkota king. He excels the exploits of Alexander in many ways, and we don't know about him. Lalitaditya, we don't know. We don't talk about it. Homs, how dare we put them as a regional empire? They are mainstream. They defeated Aurangzeb at the height of his power. No one else could have done that. My point is, we need to really reclaim our history and make it truly Bharatiya in our sense. And the day we'll pack all these people who play politics in the name of history and say, oh, this is regional, this is that. And then again, they will try to go the other side and say, look, nobody talking about Cholas. All this, everything is owned by North Indians. So they play both ways. They stock fire both ways, and they try to divide the country and its civilizational continuity and unity.
Okay. Just like how the leftist ecosystem has their own books, like each and everybody will quote themselves saying this is the history. Likewise, do you think there should be a nationalist ecosystem who are so proud of their history? If there is a nationalist ecosystem, like writing our original history without any distortions, how it should look like according to you?
See, I always believe that the ideal person for me is, when it comes to history and history writing, it will be Jodha Sarkar. Jodha Sarkar was one person who believed in that fact is sacrosanct. You can't play with facts. It might hurt your sentiment for some time, but see, the day you start playing with history, truth of history, that day you will go into that amnesia. You will stop being the real world. So Jodha Sarkar, when he wrote about Marathas or Shivaji, I categorically remember Marathas were very unhappy with him. Section of them, they didn't like it. They wanted larger than life image of Shivaji, which Jodha Sarkar was not very happy about. He said, whatever fact is, I'll write that. Though Jodha Sarkar believed that Shivaji was one of the best kings and generals Hindu civilization has ever produced. Yet he was never in favor of hiding some of the problems or mistakes or anything he found there. Similarly, when he wrote the history of Bengal, most Bengalis were very unhappy because there was one king they wanted to compare him with Maharana Pratap, and said, what rubbish! You see the exploit of Maharana Pratap, he's nothing in front of him. So my point is, when we write history, I think this should be the classic example. This should be the parameter of doing it. And Jodha Sarkar, for instance, Jodha Sarkar was very rigid in way. According to his historiography, like if you want to be history of medieval India, then you have to know all the languages being used there, because you need to read the original source first. So I'm not a historian. That's why I never claim myself a historian. But by that context, Romila Thapa is not a historian because Romila Thapa doesn't know Sanskrit. So, so the point, that should be the height of person calling them historians, and it can't be selective that some a gang
Okay.
of people will each call each other, oh, you are a historian, I'm a historian, and they will kind of legitimize each other. So,
Actually, that is
yeah, but in our case, history writing, I think we need to create kind of ecosystem. That's a very good question you asked, because abhi kya ho raha hai? Right now what is happening is we all are working in our silos. Like I wrote a book, Vikram wrote a couple of books, few more people have written a few books. Uh, so everyone is working in their own silos in some way, but they know not just institutional push is not there. Like left always work with that. Left has also worked with the government push. Right now, government's focus is not on our history or our culture in that sense. They're more focused on politics and geostrategy and all these things. They're doing some work in that thing, but largely they are not there. Like history writing is they've not done hardly done anything. But as a society, I believe that we need to come together and create some institutional sort of ecosystem where
okay.
we try to push like-minded ideology, like-minded views, and then create a history. Then that will be sustainable. Otherwise, what will happen the moment a regime change happens, everything will just collapse.
But do you think Bharat as a nation is ready to unlearn and relearn this distorted history? Do you think
No,
we are ready?
it's already happening. I'm sorry, it's happening. I'm a very optimist person in that way. See, I believe that challenges are huge. The coloniality is a two front, physical as well as mental. Physical we got rid of. Mental is still there. But you see, last 10 years or 15 years, look at the discourse. Look at the questions we are asking now. Look at the things you are doing here. Could you have done in the past? No. So it opens a new vista, new horizon for us. Challenges are huge. And it's still long, long way to go, no doubt about that. But the thing is that today what we are doing, we have never done in the past. Today you look at the Mahakumbh in Prayagraj. And I'm sure many young kids also went out of adventure. But to see adventure in a Mahakumbh also is a kind of it's a long leap of faith. I mean, today young generation is very proud of their identity. It was never the case 20, 30 years ago.
Okay.
So things are changing, but still, I believe that it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. And colonial jo hangover, it takes a longer time to go away.
Okay.
So for that, I
Yeah.
say that we need to make an ecosystem where we are together. And for first thing is we have to change our history. And throughout, our history is still written from the outsider perspective. If you read our history, it is nothing but series of invasions from outside and a series of defeats for us. Nothing else. The reality is that we might have lost 10 battles, but we won more than 100 battles. No one talks about those 100 battles. They talk about the few defeats. I'll give one example, for instance. We are often reminded, Nanda Mahavihar was destroyed by a king called Lutera, I should say the plunderer, called Bakhtiyar Khilji. Now, Bakhtiyar, how did he die? You will not find most our textbook talking about that.
Yeah. How did he
He
die?
was he died the most of this unwanted death. I must say, he lost miserably to a king of Assam, so miserably that his own soldiers killed him. Do we even tell her? We tell her all the things we lost. He lost in Assam. So, so my point is, we talk about Muhammad Ghori defeating, Prithviraj Chauhan. Do we tell our people, our youngsters, that that there was a lady called Nike Devi in Gujarat? She defeated Muhammad Ghori so decisively that for almost more than a decade, he didn't even dare to look towards India. We have so many people. We are told that Muhammad bin Qasim came and won in 712 AD the Sindh. We are not told that that attack was insignificant. Within 4 to 5 decades, there was nothing left of this Arab invasion. There were just two small principalities, Mansura and Multan. The two principalities remained Muslims. For that also, there were rulers called Gurjar Patihar. Gurjar Patihar, till the time they remained, Indian boundaries were safe. They kept on fighting, 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 fighting. No one talks about them, their rulers. There was a ruler called Bhoj I. His empire was so widespread, so flourishing, no one talks about him. There was a Dhruva. There was Dhruv one, I think, of that Deccan kingdom. They were then there was Pala dynasty. We don't talk about them. So my point is, till the time we don't. As I was talking about Nike Devi for example. Nike Devi, her husband had died. His son was still very, very young. She fought and she led in the war, and she decided this war so beautifully that the defeat was very decisive for Gori. We don't tell our own stories. It's time that we start telling our stories. The thing is that Islam in 100 years, after the death of Prophet Muhammad, spread across the world. It reached the center of France. It won the entire Central Asia, West Asia. It won almost North Africa. But it could not win a single thing in India. It took them 500 years to get the first victory of Tarain, Prithviraj Chauhan. And that was also, when you read closely, you find that Prithviraj Chauhan was overconfident of when he alienated most of his friends in the second battle, and he kind of invited defeat on himself. So my point, it took 500 years to even reach. And even when see Sandeep Balakrishna is a Bangalore-based historian. He's written a beautiful couple of books. He writes, and quite correctly, he writes that that even when the Sultanate was established in Delhi Sultanate, none of the rulers were powerful enough. Every ruler will start their term by trying to win from scratch, and by the time they will die, their kingdom will come back again to the same place. It kept on happening. Just there are two rulers who could do something substantial. That was Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Apart from them, 300 years, from 1206 to 1526, none of these Sultanate rulers in Delhi were even worthy of mention. But our text will talk about all of them, one by one. They will not talk
Yeah.
about Chola kings. They will talk about Raj Raja 1, Rajendra 1, and then they forget about everyone else. Similarly with Pallavas. But they will talk about each and every insignificant Delhi Sultan rulers. And they all were insignificant except for these two. Same with Mughals. You take out the smartness of Akbar. Akbar was a very smart ruler. He understood. He was very reasonable. He very early realized that if he had to rule this country, and if he has to make his own empire a stable one, he needs the support of a section of Hindus. Otherwise, for 300 years, 400 years, 70 Delhi Sultan was there. Their rule was absolutely fickle. Every 30 years they will go back to from where they started. So he smartly saw it, and also he saw that his own co-religionists, Muslim nobles in the court, were very unreliable and after his life. So he wanted to create a buffer. So he got matrimonial alliances with Rajputs. And that worked. That worked miraculously well for him. But the moment Aurangzeb, the new film, the Java has come. You see, the moment Aurangzeb turned this policy again and become again aggressor in a big way, this Mughal Rajput collaboration collapsed, and the empire also collapsed. By the time Aurangzeb died in 1707 AD, it was all over for Mughal Empire. Marathas were already resurgent power. So this is what the story. We have not told about that story.
You brought up the Bakhtiyarji Khilji burning Nalanda University. One of the biggest distortions I have heard when Modiji reopened the Nalanda University. There was a narrative prevailing in Tamil Nadu that Brahmins burned Nalanda University, not Khilji.
Now, who is the father of this story?
Who?
D.N. Jha. I talk about D.N. Jha. D.N. Jha was my professor in Delhi University. Very eminent
Your
professor.
professor.
Yeah. I also studied in Delhi University, my master's. So he was my professor in Delhi University. He wrote in his book that Nalanda Mahavihar, Nalanda University was destroyed by Brahmins. And what is the
Yeah,
evidence?
I like to ask you.
No,
No,
but you should look at the evidence. Evidence is very fantastic.
yeah, yeah.
For a historian, all the people they take pride in being historian. If I write a book and if you present my book to them, so this is rubbish. Who is he? He's not a historian. He will just throw away my book. when not even worthy of mention. The one classical criteria of being historian is that you will take the evidence which is contemporary to be more powerful than evidence which comes centuries later. Contemporary evidence is the strongest evidence. In
Yeah.
the case of Bakhtiyar Khilji, all contemporary evidence says that Bakhtiyar Khilji's army destroyed Nalanda. But in 18th century, there is one evidence. Some idiot wrote a book where he said that Brahmins had done that, and a term used by Hindu fanatic, a very modern term. It's not a medieval term. Hindu fanatic is a 19th century term. So the great historian called D.N. Jha picks that up, forgets about puts on the carpet all the contemporary evidence and use that to say that no, it was done by Brahmins. And look at their ecosystem. Even today we are trying to defend it. We are forced to defend that. No, yeah, it was not done by Brahmins. It was done by Bakhtiyar Khilji. Even the town, and I forget about that. The town, the railway station. If you go to Nalanda today, the railway station
Yeah,
is
yeah,
called
yeah.
Bakhtiyarpur. Bakhtiyarpur.
Bhaktiyarpur.
Why is it called Bakhtiyarpur? If Bakhtiyar Khilji wasn't there. So my point is, they will tell anything and everything which suits their agenda.
So, Utpalji, actually, I saw one of your podcasts where you mentioned Gandhiji's role in freedom struggle was so minimal. This is absolutely a shocker for many people because in Tamil Nadu, whenever we roam in the city, on the streets, for any common man, you grab him and ask him who got us freedom. The first answer he will say is Gandhiji. Gandhi got us freedom. So when you say Gandhi's role in independence struggle was so minimal, it's quite unbelievable for many people. So can you please elaborate on that?
No, I really don't blame anyone for that. We have been told this lie
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many
yeah.
times and for so many decades that we actually grew up with that story. That that there's a song also that we without soda, without lathi, what is this stick, he got us the freedom. There's a song also, film
Yeah.
song also. So this is in our subconsciousness
Like
is
the
there.
British left the nation because one man refused to eat.
Yes, yes, exactly. I mean, for British to have they just all they need to do was put him to the silver jail in Andaman Nicobar, and that's all over. But they didn't have the common sense to do that. So I mean, I'll tell you, I'll tell what British were thinking about it, and I forgot what you and my think. So Clement Attlee was the prime minister when they decided to free the country. So Clement Attlee in 1957 after India got independent, came to India in Calcutta. He was in Calcutta and he was talking to then High Court judge of Calcutta High Court. And while conversing, this High Court judge asked him that, so according to what was the role of Mahatma Gandhi in this country's independence? And he actually used the term minimal, which I often use. Minimal was not used by me. It was used by Clement Attlee to say that the role of Mahatma Gandhi was minimal in the country's independence. And many people, contemporary people who were seeing the independence struggle in the late 40s, agreed with that. The British army chief of that era, the head of the army, categorically said that they left this country because after what Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose did with INA, Indian National Army, uh, it was very difficult to control the country. One, when their own military, British Army, was heavily influenced by INA, Netaji's exploits in Southeast Asia. And that's why in 1946, the rebellion happened in Navy, Rebellion of 1946. After that, British realized that now, see, they were ruling through army. They were just few in number. The moment they realized the army is not their own now, they thought it's time for them to pack their bags. Even Ambedkar, in his memoirs, says the same thing. He categorically says that. So all the people of that era who were involved, except for Gandhians, they conceived that his role was very minimal. Now, other thing also was which I like to explain is, had World War II not happened, British were not going anywhere. They were just not in a hurry. Till 1945, before 1945, they were not even thinking about this, seriously thinking about leaving the country. So what happened after the war? After the war, two things happened. One, America was absolutely vehement that British should leave the subcontinent. Roosevelt has made it his own agenda that you have to leave the country and go away. You don't have a business in the subcontinent. And after World War II, Britain was a third rate power. We really depended on Americans. So that was one international this thing. Second thing, Britain itself has got so impoverished. It didn't have the resource to run this colony. So look at what happened. After 47, only India didn't get the independence. 50 other countries also got the independence, and they got independence without Gandhi, without even asking for freedom, because British could not have control. It was difficult to control. It was getting very costly for them to do that. So this international dimension, as well as the internal situation of Britain, also played the role. Now, I have another problem with that. Is that that Gandhi for me is important. I genuinely
Okay.
believe that Gandhi, and Gandhi was acknowledged also, like every revolutionary also, from Netaji Subhash Bose to whosoever, acknowledged Gandhi. When Rabindranath Tagore was acknowledged Gandhi, Gandhi was a good soul, good person, good leader. So there was no doubt about Gandhi's ability. All I'm questioning that Gandhi did not get us freedom single-handedly, and his role was also not the most important one. Just the thing, he had played the role. He had aroused the masses of this country, no doubt about that. The villagers, he would just, Gandhi, one speech and they will just come up on the roads and they start walking. So he had created that thing. He created that symbolism around himself. True, that is fact. But did that got us freedom? No. British, and again, like just like Aryan vision theory. Let's just be commonsensical about it.
Okay.
Why did British only sent a revolutionary to Andaman Nicobar Silver Jail and not any Gandhian? Not one Gandhian had been sent there. It's very simple because they did not see them as threats. For them, they know that they can be managed. And in fact, if you read closely, you'll find that Gandhi at many times played the role of safety valve, where when people will become too angry, and British will see that now the revolutionary thing is getting too out of control now. Then suddenly Gandhi will start his movement. And I'll tell you how. First movement started after Jallianwala Bagh, this non-cooperation movement. Jallianwala Bagh, after Jallianwala Bagh, this country was on fire, absolute fire. So Gandhi comes up suddenly, emerges on the scene, and he launches his non-cooperation movement, and in which all revolutionaries also take part. Bhagat Singh also took part in that. Chandrasekhar Azad took part. So all revolutionaries also took part in Gandhian movement. It's not that revolutionaries don't take part in his movement. Then suddenly in 1922, Gandhi stopped his non-cooperation movement after the killing in Chauri Chaura in Uttar Pradesh.
Ah.
Then, uh, then what happened? Suddenly, all revolutionaries become jobless again. So they came out and then started doing their revolutionary activities. So you see all the revolutionary activities from 1922 to 1930, where Kakori case happened. Chandrasekhar Azad did all the exploits. Bhagat Singh, Batukeshwar Dutt, Sachindranath Sanyal, all these people started doing the revolutionary activities across the country. And when Bhagat Singh incident happened, that showed that if intervention is not made at the right place, this country will go into this spiral of violence where people were angry. So you see another Gandhi movement called Dandi March, put very strategically in 30. And same thing happened in the 42 and the Quit India movement. So one thing is that Gandhi also was more favorable for British in certain ways than what we talk about. And two, revolutionary not just fought alone, but fought with Gandhi. So revolutionaries were constantly fighting for last 30, 40 years, 50 years, while Gandhi were fighting for those 3, 4 movements. And then they will go quiet and do the social work. They were doing their work, but they were not fighting the British. While revolutionaries were fighting throughout British. So it's time that we acknowledge these people who have been fighting. And I'm of you that you don't demean anyone in this country. There is space for Gandhi also. There is space for Vallabhbhai Patel also. There is space for Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose also. There is space for Savarkar also. Let's not play politics. They all were our patriots, and they need to be given their space. Problem happens when out of politics you say that Savarkar was a coward. Please. See, we need to really check how Savarkar had faced this, the trials at the cellular jail in Andamans. And look, when he came out, a lot of people make a lot of issue about his pleading and apology later. Had it truly been a kind of agent of British, why was British keeping a close eye on him even 10 years after he was released from jail? He was kept a close eye. So all these things, that's my point, is we should not politicize our heroes. Our heroes have done this thing and they have sacrificed enough. It's time for us to at least recognize them and give them their importance.
Okay. Actually, I think we have discussed a lot about the distortions that has happened in Indian history. Actually, I think this is going to be our first conversation. We'll have a lots of conversation in the future too. Whenever there is a history distortion that is happening in the main public discourse, which will cost India, cost Bharat. We will make every child learn the original history of Bharat. And thank you so much for your contribution to Utpalji. So we are so grateful for you too. So I thank you on behalf of all Tamil people for all your contributions. Thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you so much. I think your work is equally important, if not more important. You are taking it to each single individual at their home as a message, which is can find my book. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
இப்போ உடல் ரீதியாக ஒரு பிரச்சனை வருது அப்படின்னா அந்த பிரச்சனைக்கு இந்த ஒரு வாஸ்து பாதிப்பு காரணமா இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு சொல்ல முடியுமா?
உங்க வீட்டோட தென்கிழக்கு தெற்கு சார்ந்த 22 டிகிரில என்ன இருக்குங்கிறத நீங்க செக் பண்ணுங்க. நான் சொல்ற மாதிரி பாதிப்பு அந்த இடத்துல இருந்தது அப்படின்னா நிச்சயமா அந்த இடத்துல.
இந்த மாதிரி ஆன்மீகம் மற்றும் ஜோதிடம் சார்ந்த இன்னும் பல வீடியோக்கள் பார்க்கணுமா? மறக்காம திருவருள் டிவிக்கு சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணுங்க. திருவருள் டிவியுடைய சேனல் லிங்க் இந்த வீடியோடைய டிஸ்கிரிப்ஷன்ல இருக்கு.